Hi, everyone. Should we have a moment? It's our first LA event. I think we need to celebrate that. There's so many great people here today. We're really honored that you guys are here and that we can share this event with you. The night is broken into two panels. The first one is going to be development to green light. I pivoted my career 3 years ago and went into development, and I have had a great time. But I do think there's a mystique to how it all happens, or the different paths that different people can take to get a green light. So I have an amazing group of women joining me tonight, and we're just gonna kind of hopefully pull back the curtain a little bit and share with you their stories, what they do in their roles, so that all of us here today can learn a little bit more about the different paths. All right, so you have 4 women in front of you that have had incredible careers, but we've all taken very, very different paths. So I think the first question is, which we talked about in our group, is could all of you tell me your path to where you sit today?
I had a very interesting path. I was going to go to medical school, and I didn't. Ended up working for Stephen Cannell Productions, ended up at Saban for many years, and then had some kids and made a couple shows, and then I ended up at MGA for a few years. And MGA is a toy company, and I ran the entertainment division. So I oversaw the content for them for almost 9 years. And now I am spearheading a new company called Happy Nest, which is a joint venture between Stampede and UTA. And I'm in the business of finding amazing creatives and creating some pretty cool IP. So that's my new world now.
Just a little job. Just a little job. All right, Michelle, you started in digital.
I actually started in print.
Oh,
My
okay.
first job was assisting the editor-in-chief of Teen Magazine, which
Wow,
I thought was,
okay, we didn't cover that.
very glamorous at the time. It was during the boy band era, so it's very interesting that at the time none of the editors really wanted to actually go to say. Get stuff for this website. What's a website, And I was like, oh, I'll take that camera to the Backstreet Boys, shoot, sure. Get some B-roll, whatever that is. But I ended up making content for AOL, where I was going to say I was kind of a little bit disappointed we didn't have big red chairs.
Sorry.
I worked for, I know some of you know, Crazy Malcolm Bird when I was at AOL, and he had these love sacks that he made to make our office crazy, hip, and cool. And they were these giant bean bags that we had to share with people. So you'd be trying to get out of the bean bag, and he'd be like, Mish. So I just moved doing content for kids and teens online, and then had the opportunity, so I was making games and ebooks, and at the time, mostly for advertisers, kind of figuring out how to use money to make content for what was at the time the way you got on the internet. I know some people here are probably like, what is AOL? Google it, you'll have to figure it out.
The irony of saying Google it.
And then I just had the opportunity to go over to National Geographic, where I had the opportunity to sort of help shape and grow and help that print team figure out how to make digital experiences for their content. And parallel to that, Donna Friedman-Mayer, who I know is here, is making amazing content, trying to find a network to run that content. And we didn't have Fox at the time owned the network, but they were making Toon Puddle and some other Mama Mirabelle, beautiful shows that then they'd be like, please, may we put our show on your network? And I met Tara Sorensen, and at the time everyone had sort of kind of moved on, and Tara and I were like, how can we get money to make the content? And I remember at the time my team had kind of moved over to the print team, and literally one year there was oh, we don't have any money for digital content. Can't you just use the print stuff? And I was like, oh gosh, we need money to make stuff. And at the time, Tara was like, we were like, wow, who's making money? YouTube was giving out money for digital content, so we worked with a business person to kind of come up with a OTT strategy. And then at the time, I think Tara's here, but she was I don't think she'll mind me telling the story, was I had this interview at this company, I'm not gonna get the job, and it was at Amazon. And then she left. And I took this job and started this amazing group of people. And anyway, I ended up staying and sort of launching, this OTT streaming business and kind of getting into that content world. And luckily, kind of when I decided to move back to LA, just had her mentorship and friendships to say listen, I think you should come work for me. And I was like, doing what? And she was like, development. And I was like, well, I've never done that. And luckily, she talked me out of taking a crazy job. But I was like, no, I'm gonna take this. There's a digital job I got offered. And she's like, no. And I've always had this North Star, and I think everyone should sort of try to find one, where I was like, I wanna work with someone that I admire. I wanna work for someone I admire on a team I can learn from and kind of make cool things that kids love. And so, like, sort of fit that role, and has kind of been gangbusters since, like learning and growing in animation. So
Love
it's been
that.
a good fit. But it's a nice pivot to your point about pivoting. You don't get many opportunities to do that, and for someone to sort of see that, I feel really grateful to be like, oh yeah, you could do that. Like, it's nice.
All right, Corey, you have the most linear path of all of us, at least as far as IMDb is concerned. So you've worked on amazing shows, Care Bears, My Little Pony, and Dr. McStuffin. Incredible, incredible IP. So tell us, how did you do it? How did you get on all these shows? How did it all begin, and what's been the journey?
Well, first off, good for IMDb for making it look like a linear path, because it sure didn't feel like that. I actually, when I moved to Los Angeles, I knew I wanted to work in the entertainment industry, but being a writer was never on those lists of possibilities. It just didn't occur to me that I could do that. But I started working in an independent production company right out of college who made me the head of development. There is always a catch when somebody makes you the head of development when you're 21. And that was, they had absolutely no money. And so there was no budget to option properties or hire writers or anything. So I was supposed to do it, which basically started my development life of crime, as I call it. So the first thing I did was I sold a series to ABC based on the book series that we didn't own the rights to. And then I wrote a series about myself and my sort of animal activism and veganism and everything about kids who save animals. And to make it look good for the company, we slapped some other writers' names on it, who then tried to come back for all this money, so then we had to go through arbitration to get them off. But then, eventually, the series was greenlit, and I was on board. And my bosses were like, get back in your development dungeon and sell more shows. And I was like, but you're making the show about me. And it was at that point I realized it was time for me to make a career choice. So I quit my job and just started referring to myself as a writer.
Love that, love that. Will it into existence. So on that note, there's quite a lot of writers in the room, and there's many paths for a writer can take. You can go into competitions, fellowships. I think the biggest question people have, or at least that I've talked to, is how do you get on your guys' radar? So Sadaf, you've got a new company, you look for writers for new shows. How do you go about finding the new hot writer, as they say?
I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to people, just Zooms. I always answer. I've learned from my creative executive. I always answer LinkedIn, things that come across. I definitely love being introduced to new people, but my favorite thing to do is just to talk to writers and see what they love and what inspires them, what's their favorite thing to do. And then it seems like at one point, when the right project comes, that's when I kind of go, oh, you know what, you love XYZ, like I would love to work with you. And that has always seemed to work really well. So I've always been fortunate to kind of just meet, wonderful people through other people, but I've enjoyed taking kind of cold calls and meeting people.
Love that.
Yeah, I think it's cool because a lot of some of the greatest writers I've worked with have just come not through an agent, not through a manager, but because I had met them, they were bold enough to either email me or actually do a LinkedIn request, and I've had the good fortune of meeting some pretty awesome people that way.
So we'll share your email later.
So my email is Corey Powell.
I agree, though. I think that's been one thing that the pandemic has, done really well. It's if writers probably were like, oh my gosh, you'd have to haul across town to sit in a little room to wait to meet for a little bit. At least being able to pop on a Zoom has been so nice. You can take some time out of your day, and for someone like me who's obviously a pretty high extrovert, you'll find out, it was so nice to be able to take some time to match face to name. just to sort of like remember someone, like, and get to know that person and say like, oh, what are you interested in? What do you want to do? And so when the time comes to be like, oh, I need a 6 to 11 writer, especially kind of being new. I always feel like the new kids kind of coming into this being like, oh, I didn't kind of come up with a lot of writers. So people, obviously it's like who you know and people you've worked with, and people tend to favor, like, I'm sure you're always like, oh, I want to work with people that you've kind of known, that trying to find new faces, it's nice to have that flexibility to like just take some generals.
Yeah.
I try to do a few a month,
Yeah, you said a few a month.
Yeah.
All right, Corey, different point of view, same kind of question. You have a manager. How is it before you had a manager, and why did you choose to get a manager to help you with your career?
Well, I can start off by saying that my manager is somewhere in this room. Hello, Matthew Ellis. So I'm only going to say nice things, which he deserves. He really does deserve it. The way I started without a manager was because I had a lot of contacts because I'd been in development and a lot of people that I'd been friends with. So I just was very sort of straightforward and bold, and I just called everybody, and I was like, I'm a writer now. I want to be a writer. Think of me as a writer. Give me a job. And eventually, if they were here now, I would call them out. But a couple of executives were like, well, I can't just give you a job, but I can put you in touch with the story editors, and you can start pitching. And so that's what I did, and I would, for every script possibility, I'd probably send out 15 premises, but it worked. And so I started getting scripts, and then it went from there. And then shortly after that, again, because I had so many contacts, Matthew wasn't the first, but he isn't the last. I ended up with another manager just because I knew people.
Cool. All right, I'm going to come right back to you. Setting a scenario here. You've nailed a pitch, and you're sitting with a production company, and they're interested. What comes next for you usually? How does it normally happen?
It pretty much happens the same way every time. It is they hire you to do a Bible. And if anyone doesn't, I think most people in this room know what one is, but it's this document that outlines the world and the characters and why you're making the show and what possible episodes are. And depending on how much money they have, then from there they can often do a script, like the show that Sully and I did. I did 3 scripts. 2 of them actually made it to series. Ooh. 1 of them got the boot. But and then if there's a place that's really puts a lot into it, like a network, or I have a project. I can't say what it is, but it's at Warner Brothers Television, and they are fantastic. They did a Bible and 3 scripts and an animatic and focus testing and artwork, and I feel like we've already made this series. So that's pretty much the path on every show, though.
All right.
But we should say even the show that we worked on together, Do Re and Me, on Amazon Prime Video. But by the time you guys pitched it to me, that was like, you had been working on it for a little bit. But by the time we started working on it, it was still 5 years before it hit like streaming, right? It was about 5 years. It
wasn't quite that long, but it was long. I feel like it was close to 2 years before the green light.
Before the green light, but then by the time people saw it, that's the one thing I miss about digital. Like, I could go home tonight and put something online. You know what I mean? You're like 18 months before you see it. The patience of having to do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me go back to you with that one. You've had a great meeting. You love the pitch.
Yes.
You want it.
Yes.
So how do you go about getting it?
Where's Kimberly Dennison? Well, mostly I have to go and do a little song and dance for my boss, Terry Kalajian, who is a tough sell about why I want it. And Terry asks a lot of questions. And then sometimes she sends me and Katie and we're like a development team of 2. And so we go back and sometimes have to craft more answers about why we really want this. And then, if we really get past Terry, then we have to go pitch to Nicolas, our French boss. And Nicolas is a little bit easier sell than Terry. But then once we get yes, this is going to be a beautiful graphic novel we want to make, or this is we want to option this. Then it goes off to this mysterious business affairs legal place for many, many months And we don't know. We're always like, when's that going to come back? How's it going? We want to start working on that. Has everybody heard? No, I don't know. Deals take a while, and we get really frustrated. I don't know. It's a lot of negotiation. People like to negotiate who go to law school and things. Then when it comes back, then we start working on the Bibles and the scripts, and then we're thinking about, gosh, how can we get our friends at Apple or our friends at Netflix or someone, to buy this and work on the pitch. Then we get to work. And I think it probably takes us anywhere from, we get the visual development material. For us, we don't have in-house creative, so we're usually thinking about who's a great studio to work with, or sometimes we work with our French studio. We have a pre-production studio over in France. We've worked with some beautiful Irish studios. We worked with a studio over in Brazil. We kind of like keep an eye on some of the beautiful animation studios about who matches sort of the, either the feel of the property or, sort of what we're going for. Is it 2D, is it CGI? And get that material together, work on the pitch, and take it out. And hopefully someone buys it. Yeah. And it's probably about 4 to 6 months, I think, to get it going. Yeah.
All right, Sadaf, you have this amazing new company, and you're more creator-focused. I think I read that you're a creator-driven production company. So I think it would be fantastic if you could share with the room what that means, how that's different to other production companies, because I think it's amazing and everyone should know.
We're taking a unique approach in that while we do look at books and we option, ideas that kind of are normal ideas that people pitch out. So we have optioned a couple books. There's, like I was saying earlier, where I talk to people and say, what do you like and what do you love? We're developing a project with actually a guy who has never worked in TV before, but the property and the idea behind it was so close to his heart that we brought him in. We've paired him with a very established showrunner, and we're going to develop a show based on that. So we do a lot of, the goal is, I think there's so much creativity out there, and people have so many amazing ideas. What seems to happen a lot is people just don't know how to maybe execute, or I think a lot of people are new or young or have really never done it before. And that's what so much of what we, like to do is we pair people with established showrunners. We help them, day in and day out kind of get their idea prepared. And then we'll pair them with people and kind of take it out that way. So it's been really fun because I think we've gotten to work on some really cool ideas. We're working with this really amazing author, from the ground up. So it's been fun. It's been different because my old world really started from a toy concept, and then I developed content around that toy. And this is really different. We're kind of reverse engineering the whole thing. So it's been fun.
Love that. And I think more than anything, Michelle, we were talking about this. When you create something, a lot of people want to hold onto it. And you had a lovely way of framing how you bring out from people, what should you protect? Do you remember how you shared that with us?
Yeah, I think this is just sort of a Gaumont point of view, so I can't take credit, but I think, very early on when we meet, kind of celebrate our kickoff, once we've gotten the BA, legal, oh yeah, by the way, that deal's closed. We're like, yes! We have our big kickoff and we get together with the creator and we have this conversation where we say, okay, what are the top 3 things you want us to that are most important to you? What should we protect for you going into this process? Knowing that things are gonna evolve, things are gonna change, because it does a couple of things. One, it sort of sets the expectation, things are gonna change, we have to just be comfortable with that. And sort of it lets us hear from that individual or that company sort of okay, this is most important, and sort of it helps prioritize what that is. The other day, so we're working, I think we've announced we're doing a show with Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas, and he had said to us okay, Sully, the most important things to us is this water is life messaging, because it's an indigenous series, and he's a water protector, and it's a show, it takes place in the water, and the next thing is about friendship, and the third thing of the 2 characters, And the third thing is about the music, and because he's going to bring this music and his music to it. But as we kind of went through the development, we're like, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to change one of the genders of the characters. We're going to actually move this, and hey, the music is going to have some of this indigenous stuff. We're going to actually move to Australia and bring in Brazil. And he's like, okay, cool, like great. But because it kept the core importance of that. We met with another creator last week, Katie and I was like, I'm so excited about this graphic novel. I've been looking for something in the 6 to 9 kind of boy space. And that creator's like, okay, cool. Actually, like, like as the parent of a non-binary child, like this character doesn't have a gender. And I was like, oh, okay, great, good to know. We will write it that way. Like, thank God I didn't kind of go down that path of like, really far. So it was like kind of a good thing we asked that. So yeah, just kind of nice to know.
So Duff, you're investing in different projects, and whenever you're making a choice to move a show forward, there's different criteria or different things that you look for. Can you share with the audience maybe what you're looking for now or what you've looked for in the past, just so that we can frame those kind of conversations and
Sure.
the things that you look for?
In the past, because I was creating content for brands that existed or helping brands like expand, it was really important for us to just make sure that the storylines, the narrative, everything that we were telling ultimately were promoting that brand in a really good light and creating new audiences and new fans and new consumers. With Happiness, what we're doing is, I am looking for projects and properties that can live beyond just the digital what you see on screen. So one of the projects that we're doing, we're going to start with graphic novels first, and then we're going to turn that into a show. Or I really love to think of things, Michelle said it at the beginning, there's something, or we were talking about it, like there's something really magical about creating a show that a kid then either wants to go to bed with that stuffed animal in their arms, or it's their favorite toy that they carry around every day, or they want to be that character, for Halloween, or their pajamas. Some people look at like that kind of consumer product stuff as like, nah, but you've made like a connection with a child that's so meaningful that you've created a friend and a safe space for them. And I think, I look at projects that way. Like, it's important for me to be able to make something that doesn't just, come out as 10 episodes of something. I really want there to be, meaningful consumer products, meaningful licensing, merchandising, books, whether like we turn it into a podcast, but just more of an extension so that it can live on just beyond just the series that it is.
Yeah, and truly be a part of their life.
Yeah.
We had a conversation about the market right now and the appetite for risk. So Michelle, you said to me, Bluey probably would never have gotten made if it was a U.S. production. Can you elaborate on that comment?
Again, opinion of one, like asterisk. Well, I just think at the time, I'd be curious what folks think when we're having conversations later over cocktails. But I think when you look at it and you look at what's on Disney's slate and sort of, just the look of it, the 2D, when you look at some of the stories, I think about how, even the stories like how dad plays with the kids, it's like a little real and rough. And I feel like a lot of S&Ps would have been like, oh, that's too much. Like, we need to pull back on that. And I've had some conversations with friends at the ABC. I think I'm a real admirer of what the Australian broadcast group, what Libby and those are doing down there. They push boundaries on the types of programming that they're doing in their live action space in particular. And I think it's funny now that like Abbott Elementary is like, having, homage to Bluey. I think there's a bravery in sort of, now everyone's like, I've got the next Bluey. When you have people who are like, I've got the next this, when any pitch, they're kind of chasing it. It's sort of interesting. So I think like, what Tara would probably say, like Tumbleleaf was not something that people ever would have, said like, yes, that's a show you have to make, a stop motion, and but how beautiful that show is, how beautiful and proud we are of Stillwater at Gaumont, which is on Apple right now, which is very different from things in the market space. there are just some risks that you have to be willing to take. I have a show that I like tell everyone about. I'm sure Terry will be like, God, stop talking about that show. But it's like for 6 to 11, it's like a TikTok guy that I've been obsessed with since the pandemic, and I love his humor. And I'm like, we're gonna make it like a scripted show with this dude, like, and it's different and it's unique. And I found a great writer to kind of pull like a funny narrative and mystery around this guy's humor, and we're just gonna see how it works. So I don't know. Yeah, I think take some risks that way. Everyone's like really about, and I know it's like IP, and I'm like, some of the IP that's being brought back is beautiful. I love like Wild Brain and Stephanie and that team are doing gorgeous stuff. Like, I love some of the reinvention of that, but at some point we're gonna need to have the next SpongeBob or the next, look at like Andy and the Coco Melon team. Like, whoever would have thought that would have like, the ding, ding, like the sound that follows us all into like our, our consciousness. Like those are original, sparks. So I just think we have to balance.
You have to balance it. And Corey, I think you actually had the best answer to this question in terms of existing IP that's getting reinvented. And do you remember what you said?
Yeah, it said it doesn't matter because we all get to remake it anyhow. They haven't seen my version of this thing.
That was what I loved. She said, but people haven't seen my version of this IP, which I thought was fantastic. Okay, so we talked about this too. We've all faced different development challenges along the way. So I'm just setting the stage for you guys to maybe share one idea where you had to overcome something in the development process that you maybe hadn't foreseen that you would have to face it, or how you overcame it, one or the other.
Well, I will tell you again, having worked at a toy company was really interesting because we used to do a lot of development while we were in production. And so it was always this very interesting challenge where, because you're working with, people who are making products, a lot of things were getting tested along the way. So we'd be, far down the road with narrative. We've already decided the characters, we've built the world, and all of a sudden we'd get information that was like, so yeah, that character, yeah, she's out, and that other thing you were doing there, we're not gonna do that. And you had to literally, in the middle of production, oftentimes, while we were still kind of in development, figure out how to change those things. So that was something that actually taught me to not become too attached to things. It was a really good way to learn that, like, just because you love something so deeply doesn't mean that the thing that replaces it can't be as great. And I had to become super, malleable and like learn how to become a little bit more nimble too. So I think my greatest challenges in the development part was always that. You'd be far down the road and you thought like you had the perfect thing, and then you'd get this like anvil thrown at you that was like, so not that. That boy is now a girl. Like, not only that, it was just like major things. So that was a good lesson to learn.
All right, Corey, challenge.
Okay, well, I'm not as evolved as Sadaf because I hang on to things for a long time, and I'm actually living that experience right now. So I had this project that I absolutely love so much in development at Warner Brothers. It was supposed to go into production at the beginning of the year. And then there was this whole merger thing. And that was just, that's been tough. It's still surviving, but I think that I get through it sort of the way that, check my bank account, see how long I can survive, panic calls to my manager, lots of whining to my friends, and plenty of conversations about like what the universe has in store for me. And, but ultimately it just comes down to like, if you really want it, you just gotta hustle in the meantime. So it's like, I'm just taking work that I can. And I've been very lucky also to have some great relationships. Like I work at Moonbug with Andy and some different places that keep me going. So it's nice.
And also, she can't tell you. It's going to be amazing when it comes out. All right, Michelle, what's the big challenge? How did you get around it?
I think one is just acknowledging there's never a right answer. I think it's, it's a subjective business. It's very collaborative. So like sometimes there's a lot of voices in the room. And so sometimes when you're trying to please everyone, you have to sort of like acknowledge that you're not going to please everyone. Right. Like that's the challenge. And then for us, sometimes it's like just when to let it go, right? Like you can sometimes be really trying to make something work, and you just have to go, oh, sometimes we just got to put that baby on the shelf or let it go. And that's where, like, personally, I have had to reframe, like, just in sort of your work, because as someone who's like, what do you mean? Like, you know, I've always done well in school, I did well, or like whatever, like what success looks like or what failure looks like, because it's like not really, you know, I'm like, oh, we failed, we did that show, didn't get picked up. And like, you know, I was really down about something, and Terry's like, what do you mean? Like, this is what is nice. When you work for someone who's really heart forward and loving, and like, oh, if you're kind of blaming yourself, and you have to sort of go, well, the success was getting it into like a good shape to take it out, and sort of acknowledging that it's not necessarily a personal failure. It's like you sort of like, you had success in getting it, and like you have to sort of just let go with some of the things that, and the more you do that, like you can sort of detach. But I get when you're like, what do you mean you don't like this? It's amazing.
All right, we are going to open the floor up to Q&A, so if you have questions, we will do that, but quick lightning round. Okay, what's the one show you wish you had made?
Right now, I am loving, oh, Christina's not here. I love Amber Brown on Apple. I've been telling everybody about this live action show. I love it so much. I love that there are like real grown-up storylines. I love the lead actor in it. I just have been so many, like, you know, it's just like kids at the age they are, and I've been telling so many parents of 9 to 12-year-olds who are loving it, so I wish that was one. And I also watched Trash Truck the other day, and I just watched the most beautiful little episode where he puts his little voice into a can, and then the can opens, and his friends decide to like try to capture sounds to get his voice back. It was so sweet. Yeah, those two.
Any version, even the bad ones, of Harriet the Spy.
Oh,
That is my
that's
favorite
great.
book ever, and I'd love to make a version of it.
Oh, wow. Hint, hint, right?
Anyone out there?
Zada.
I know you actually gave us this early, and I've like literally been thinking about it nonstop to try to figure out. One, I wish I could make Emily Paris, because I would love to go to Paris and do that.
I just want the fashion from
And the outfits are amazing. But I love stop motion, and I always have. And I would have loved to have been a part of Nightmare Before Christmas. I think it's one of the like most magical, from the music to the stop motion. It's something that I would have loved to have been a part of. So
Love that, love that. All right, over to you guys. Who has a question?
Nice to meet you, I'm Jess. I have a question about the holistic look at the development process. So for example, if you have a show idea, is something that you want to go along with it is options for CP or digital content, just because I've seen that on other RFPs and what that kind of goes into for you guys in getting something to greenlight.
I mean, for us, it's less important. I think just Gaumont, like, you know, when we see pitches, we prefer to see them before they would say go to a streamer or a network. So, like, if that becomes important, we would help work with a creator or a studio to sort of think through some of those things. If it becomes something that's important, it's not necessary. I think character story, like why this is so, like, what's cool about this character and unique, and what are some stories we have to tell is more important. I don't know about you guys. I don't know about you, Sada.
yeah, I mean, same. I mean, it's always like the story and the characters, and the heart of it is a really big part of it. But we do, you know, work the same, like with the creators. Sometimes they come in with ideas too, and they're like, I've been thinking about what if the extension is this, and what if we can, you know. So we do try to put a holistic look, and kind of, in order for us to, you know, figure out what the longevity of something is, we'll look at what that entire franchise plan can look at, and look at what consumer products, licensing, merchandising, publishing, whether there's live shows. Like, we really try to dig in and at least put that forward, so that when we go out, we can actually present, like, listen, it's beyond just this one thing. We actually think if we do this part really well, we can actually make it experiential. Or what if we expand into publishing? So we do kind of look at it.
Yeah, I think we've done it more for international partners. I mean, PBS is always looking for digital ideas more. I mean, because like their audience is more for that. Of course, that's right up my alley. We're like, yeah, let's make some games and let's do some podcasts. And, yeah, but it's not. If you're pitching like a show, we wouldn't expect that early.
Thank you guys for speaking. The question is, you know, when you're creating things, you got to create things from your heart and things that you know. But entertainment can be such an industry of deeping your whole, you know, the work never ends. So how have you guys felt like there's a way to balance actually living lives to draw from? Keeping life
Fun?
fun.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm a fun person.
You are.
Listen, I mean, it's a great idea. It's important, I think, for all of us in the children's media industry, like to spend time with children.
Yeah.
I think whether it's like research, I think that Susie was talking about, if you're like not around kids, I think but like spending time with children, like watching children, asking kids questions. For Corey, when you said like when you're writing for like your little girl Corey, remembering what it was like for you, but like really tapping into like what it's like for kids now. I think it was really important when you were talking about like teens now and sort of mental health and sort of like what it's like for the kids that have just gone through this pandemic. I think it's just really important. Like I have a really good friend, Frankie, who just turned 9, and we went to a roller skating party. I just think you need to spend time like hearing from, listening to, spending time with our audience that we serve.
I also think it's important to recognize that, particularly in the kids' business, that work is fun.
Yeah, I agree. That's
So
true.
you don't have to divide it so much. You know, I have more fun just sitting in a writer's room than I do anywhere else. You know, so that's how you do the balance. You just make it all enjoyable.
All right, thank you. Thank you to you guys.
Thank you.
Adore you, I appreciate you.
Thanks.